Act 1. The collapse at the Grand Plaza. The pain had been there all evening, sharp and burning beneath silk and lace. But she had learned how to carry pain the way other women carried jewels. Quietly, invisibly, with a smile that never cracked. Still, as the orchestra swelled and crystal light fractured across the Grand Plaza ballroom, something inside her finally broke. Her breath came shallow. The room tilted, faces blurred into streaks of color and judgment. Hidden beneath her gown, fresh bruises screamed with every movement. Her father's voice still rang in her ears, cold and precise, delivered hours earlier behind the closed doors of the Sterling townhouse. Secure the wealthiest suitor tonight. Do not disappoint me again. Midnight was his deadline. Failure had consequences she knew too well. Clara lifted her chin as she had been trained to do since childhood. At 24, she was no naive girl. She had survived 6 brutal social seasons, each one sharper than the last. She had learned how to laugh on command, how to charm men twice her age, how to hide shaking hands inside embroidered gloves. She had learned how to stand very still when struck, how to keep silent when pain bloomed across her skin. But standing still was no longer possible. Across the ballroom, through a sea of silk and jewels, she felt eyes on her. Not the hungry appraisal of suitors or the bored cruelty of society women, but something sharper. Steadier, she found him without knowing why. Julian Vance, Marquess of Ravenscroft. He stood apart from the crowd, tall and composed, his steel-gray eyes fixed on her as if the rest of the room had vanished. He did not smile. He did not look away. It was as though he could see straight through the painted perfection she wore like armor. The floor surged upward. Clara's knees buckled, her strength vanishing in a single terrifying moment. The ballroom gasped as one. She braced for the cold cruelty of marble, for the humiliation of collapse. Instead, strong arms caught her mid-fall. The shock of it stole her breath. She was pressed against a solid chest, warm and steady, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood and winter rain. A hand firm at her back, another cradling her shoulders, holding her as if she weighed nothing at all. "I have you," a deep voice murmured near her hair, calm, certain, "and I will not let you fall again." Act 2. The confrontation. The world did not right itself, but it slowed. The spinning eased just enough for her to register where she was in the Marquess of Ravenscroft's arms, in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by hundreds of watching eyes. Clara tried to pull away out of instinct, out of fear, but her body betrayed her. She trembled, exhaustion finally demanding its price. The Marquess did not loosen his hold. Whispers rippled outward like fire across dry grass. Julian Vance lifted his head and spoke, his voice low but carrying with effortless authority. "She stays with me." The words sliced clean through the noise. Lord Arthur Sterling pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with controlled fury. To anyone else, he looked like a worried father. Clara knew better. She felt his anger like a blade at her back. "Your Grace," her father said smoothly, "my daughter is unwell. I will take her home at once." "No." The single word stopped him cold. Julian Vance did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Lady Clara will recover at Ravenscroft House under the care of my personal physician. You may call upon her tomorrow after she has rested." The ballroom held its breath. Clara felt her father's gaze bore into her, promising punishment later, promising consequences. Her fingers curled into the Marquess's waistcoat without permission, clinging as if he were the only solid thing left in the world. Julian Vance felt it. His grip tightened slightly, not possessive, but protective. As he carried her toward the doors, Clara realized something terrifying and hopeful all at once. This was not polite concern. This was defiance. The Marquess was challenging her father openly, in front of all of society. The night air struck her face as he descended the marble steps. Cool and sharp, she tried to speak, to insist she could walk, to salvage what little dignity remained to her. "The scandal," she whispered weakly. "Please, it will ruin you." "It will not," he replied calmly. "And even if it did, it would be worth it." Behind them, her father's voice rang out, loud and desperate. "Ravenscroft, this is madness. She belongs with her family." Julian did not slow. "Your daughter requires care from someone who sees her as a person, not a tool." Act 3. A sanctuary found. The carriage door opened. He settled her inside with astonishing gentleness, careful of every movement, as if he knew her body hurt, even if she had never said a word. When he climbed in across from her, the carriage lurched forward, carrying them away from the only life she had ever known. Silence filled the space between them. Clara pressed back into the velvet seat, her heart racing. She had spent her entire life managing men's expectations, anticipating their anger, shaping herself to survive them. Sitting across from the Marquess of Ravenscroft, she felt stripped of every practiced defense. "Forgive me," she said quietly, staring at her gloved hands. "I have caused you trouble. If you would just take me home, I can explain to my father." "Look at me," Julian said. The command was gentle but unyielding. She raised her eyes. "I am not taking you home," he said. "I am taking you somewhere safe. No one will lay another hand on you without your permission. Do you understand?" Tears burned behind her eyes. Kindness had always been more dangerous to her than cruelty. "You don't understand what my father can do." A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. "I understand exactly what men like him do, and I understand how to stop them." His gaze dropped to her side as her hand drifted unconsciously toward her ribs. Something dark flashed in his eyes, gone almost as soon as it appeared. "How long?" he asked softly. She did not answer at first. Silence had been her shield for years. But something about the quiet certainty in his voice cracked it open. "Since my mother died," she whispered 5 years ago. He became worse. Or maybe he always was. The carriage rolled through gaslit streets as her words spilled out shaky and broken. She spoke of expectations and punishments, of bruises hidden beneath silk, of fear disguised as obedience. She spoke until her voice failed her. Julian listened without interruption. When they arrived at Ravenscroft House, its pale stone facade glowing with warm light, Clara felt a strange ache in her chest. Hope sharp and frightening. Inside, servants moved with silent efficiency. A physician was summoned. Orders were given. Boundaries were set. No visitors without permission. Not even her father. In the quiet of the blue suite, as her corset was loosened and pain stole her breath, the truth could no longer be hidden. Bruises in shades of purple and yellow mapped her ribs, her arms, her shoulders. Evidence of cruelty laid bare. Julian saw it all. His face went still, the way the air stills before a storm. "You will never go back to him," he said, his voice controlled but fierce. "Not while I live." Clara curled inward, ashamed and terrified. "You will regret this." "I am not worth the trouble." Julian knelt before her so their eyes were level. "You are worth every trouble," he said. "And more." Later, as she lay in a clean bed beneath soft covers, exhaustion dragging her toward sleep, she watched him stand guard by the fire, silent, steady, unmoving. For the first time in years, Clara closed her eyes without fear. And somewhere deep inside her, a dangerous thought took root. What if this was not the beginning of her ruin, but the beginning of her escape? Act 4, The Stand. Clara woke to voices echoing through Ravenscroft House. For a heartbeat, terror seized her, her body tensed, bracing for pain that did not come. Then, memory rushed back. The ballroom. The fall. Strong arms. The Marquess's voice telling her she would not fall again. She sat up slowly, her ribs protesting with a dull ache. Pale winter light filtered through tall windows. Softer than any morning she remembered. She was not in her childhood room. She was not in her father's house. She was safe. The voices below grew clearer as she wrapped a robe around herself and moved toward the door. One voice she knew too well, calm on the surface, sharp beneath, her father. "I demand to see my daughter immediately." Clara froze. Her pulse thundered in her ears as memories rose unbidden. Doors slammed shut. Footsteps in the hall. The sound of anger measured and precise. Then another voice answered, low and controlled. "This is my home. You will lower your voice or leave it, Julian." Clara's hand trembled against the doorframe. Every instinct screamed at her to intervene, to go downstairs, to soothe the situation before it exploded. That had always been her role, the peacekeeper, the shield. But her ribs burned, as if warning her what obedience had cost. She stayed where she was. From the top of the staircase, she could see the entrance hall below. Her father stood rigid in his tailored coat, fury barely restrained. Julian faced him with quiet authority, his posture relaxed but unyielding. "She is my daughter," Lord Sterling said. "Whatever illness caused last night's spectacle can be managed privately." "How curious," Julian replied. "You speak of illness while ignoring the injuries covering her body." Silence fell heavy. Clara's breath caught. Her father laughed sharply. "My daughter bruises easily." "Always has. Do cracked ribs bruise easily as well?" Julian took one step closer. "Do hand-shaped marks form by accident?" For the first time in Clara's life, she saw fear flicker across her father's face. "You overstep." Lord Sterling snapped. "This does not concern you." "It concerns me," Julian said, because she collapsed in my arms. "Because I saw the truth written on her skin, and because she will remain here until she decides otherwise." Clara's knees weakened, not from fear this time, but from the weight of hearing someone speak her truth aloud. Her father's gaze swept upward, locking onto her at the top of the stairs. Calculation burned in his eyes, the same look she had seen every time he decided how best to control her. Julian shifted slightly, placing himself between them. "She will not come down," he said quietly. "And you will leave." "You think this ends here," Lord Sterling hissed. "You think society will forgive her for spending the night under your roof?" "I am not seeking forgiveness," Julian replied. "I am offering protection." The door closed moments later with a final decisive sound. Clara's legs finally gave way. She sank onto the steps, shaking, tears spilling freely now that no one demanded she hold them back. Julian looked up at her. In 2 strides he was at her side, stopping short of touching her until she nodded. Then his hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "He will not hurt you again," he said. She laughed weakly. "You do not know him." "I know men like him," Julian replied. "And they only have power as long as fear feeds it." Act 5. The strategy. Over the following days, Ravenscroft House became something Clara had never known. Quiet without tension, order without cruelty, kindness without cost. Mrs. Graves tended her with firm gentleness, scolding her softly for apologizing too much. Dr. Whitmore confirmed cracked ribs and deep bruising, his expression grave but respectful. "Time," he said, "and rest. And safety." Safety. The word felt unreal. Julian did not hover, but he was always there, reading by the fire when she woke from nightmares, walking beside her when she was strong enough to leave her room, asking before touching, always asking. One afternoon, she wandered into the library and stopped short. The room was vast and alive. Books filled every wall, worn and loved. Chairs angled towards sunlight, a ladder waiting to be climbed. Julian looked up from his chair and smiled, softer than she had ever seen him smile in public. "Welcome," he said. "This is where I hide." She ran her fingers along a shelf. "My father never allowed novels or poetry." "Then you will enjoy them here," Julian said. All of them. They spoke of books and music and small unimportant things that felt suddenly precious. And slowly, almost without noticing, Clara began to breathe differently, freely until the papers arrived. Julian saw them first. He tried to shield her, but she insisted. She always insisted on knowing what awaited her. The headlines were cruel. Fallen lady, compromised innocence, ambitious girl traps Marquess. Her father's version of events had spread like poison. Clara stared at the ink-stained pages until the words blurred. "This is my fault," she whispered. Julian knelt beside her chair. "No, this is the cost of standing up to cruelty. There is only one way society forgives women like me," she said quietly. "Marriage." Julian closed his eyes briefly. "I will never force that choice on you." Silence stretched between them. Then Clara straightened. "No," she said. "We will not let him win." Julian looked up sharply. "We announce an engagement," she continued, "but we also gather proof quietly. Records, testimony. If he ever raises his hand again, he loses everything." Julian studied her with something like awe. "You want to fight him?" "I want to end him," she said calmly, without becoming him. The engagement was announced the next morning. Society buzzed. Speculation turned cautious. The narrative shifted just enough. At the Countess of Pembroke's masquerade ball weeks later, Clara returned to society on Julian's arm, masked. Steady, her father found her on the terrace. Old fear rose, but it did not rule her. "No," she said when he tried to command her. Julian arrived before the situation could turn violent. This time, Clara did not hide behind him. She stood beside him. And when her father was escorted away, something inside her finally broke free. That night, as she danced beneath chandeliers once more, Clara realized the truth. She had not been saved. She had been given the space to save herself, and she was no longer too bruised to stand. Act 6. Rise of the Marchioness. 6 months after the night she collapsed, Lady Clara Sterling returned to the Grand Plaza Ballroom. Only this time, she did not enter alone. The chandeliers were the same, casting fractured light across marble floors polished to perfection. The orchestra played with the same practiced elegance. The whispers still existed, but they were different now. Lower, more careful. His Grace, the Marquess of Ravenscroft, and Her Grace, the Marchioness of Ravenscroft. The announcement echoed through the hall, and Clara felt it settle into her bones. Marchioness. Julian's hand rested lightly at her waist, steady, but never controlling. She wore midnight blue silk, not chosen to please or persuade, but because she loved how it made her feel powerful. The sapphire ring caught the light. No longer a promise, but a truth already lived. She breathed in slowly. 6 months ago, she had collapsed here, terrified and broken, convinced she was alone in the world. Now she stood tall, "We can leave whenever you wish," Julian murmured. "You owe no one anything." Clara shook her head. "I need to be here." She scanned the room with new eyes. She saw young women standing stiffly beside domineering fathers. She saw forced smiles and rigid postures. She recognized herself everywhere, and she understood why she had come back. They moved through the crowd together. Congratulations followed. Admiration replaced suspicion. Marriage had softened society's cruelty. But Clara knew the truth. It was not marriage that had changed her worth. It was her refusal to accept less than dignity. A young woman near the refreshment table caught her attention. Pale pink gown, hands clasped too tightly, eyes flicking toward an older man in uniform. Clara felt the familiar tightening in her chest. She approached gently. "I'm Clara Vance," she said warmly. "Would you walk with me for a moment?" The girl hesitated, then nodded. They moved along the edge of the ballroom away from listening ears. "I know that look," Clara said softly. "The one that says you are surviving something no one sees." Tears filled the girl's eyes. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. "So did I," Clara replied, until someone stood between me and cruelty and reminded me I had choices. She pressed a small card into the girl's hand. "If you ever need help, day or night, send this message. A carriage will come. No questions." The girl clutched it like a lifeline. Julian watched from across the room, pride shining unhidden in his eyes. Over time, Ravenscroft House became more than a home. The conservatory opened its doors weekly to women seeking rest and refuge. Doctors learned how to document hidden abuse. Lawyers quietly offered protection. Safe paths were built for those ready to leave. Clara led it all with calm resolve. She did not seek revenge. She sought prevention. Lord Sterling faded from influence without public scandal. His power dissolved quietly, stripped away by whispers backed with truth. He never touched her again. He never touched anyone. On a snowy morning, Clara stood in the conservatory beside Julian, sunlight filtering through glass and green leaves. "Do you ever think about who you were before?" Julian asked. "Yes," she said. "But I don't miss her. She was doing the best she could with what she had." "And who are you now?" she smiled. "Someone who stands." Julian took her hand. "You always were." Later that evening, as they danced once more beneath chandeliers, Clara caught her reflection in the mirrored wall. She did not see a woman rescued. She saw a woman who had endured, healed, and transformed pain into purpose. A woman who chose love without surrendering herself. A woman who learned that gentleness could coexist with strength. She had been bruised. She had fallen. But she had risen, and this time she would never stand alone. Share, like, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this dramatic story of survival, strength, and true love, please take a moment to like this video and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another gripping story. Thank you for watching.